Hello and welcome along. Yes, it's been another big gap. Sorry, I'm trying to do videos a bit more often, but it hasn't worked out very well. But hopefully after this one, the next one won't be too far behind. So in this video, I thought we could talk about the time Sanguinius single-handedly, or essentially single-handedly, destroyed an Imperator-class Titan. So I think this has to go down as one of the most impressive feats ever performed by, anyone really in the 40k universe. It's certainly an incredibly impressive feat. I mean, he literally destroys an Imperator class Titan with next to no help. He does use the fact that that Imperator class Titan is in a battle against other Titans, and there's a bombardment going on that creates a temporary gap in the void shields for him to get through. But after that, it's pretty much all on his own. He does it because he feels like it's necessary in that moment of the battle to turn the tide of the battle in the favor of Imperial forces. And so he feels like it's a necessary risk, and he feels like he can do it. He feels like in that moment, his personal intervention is the only thing that's going to turn the tide of battle. He turns out to be right, but also he does it because he has this feeling of invincibility, because he has had these visions that he feels like he's definitely going to die at the hands of Horus, and therefore he can't die here. So he does make a decision which perhaps he wouldn't have otherwise made, but nonetheless, it's still his ability that allows him to do this task, to actually destroy the Titan. It's not an intervention by some cosmic power, or it's not the Emperor plotting in the background to get him into the perfect position to do this or anything like that, where some other people have done some incredibly impressive things, have done it not through their own ability, but simply because they're a pawn really within the events of the heresy. Whereas he does it all on his own back. So to give some broader context to what's going on, this is at the Battle of Beta Garmon, which is the last major attempt by the Imperial forces to stop Horus reaching Terra, or at least it's not really an attempt to stop him, because by now they know that that's pretty much inevitable. It's an attempt to delay him long enough for more preparation for his inevitable attack on Terra to be put in place. And so it's really about Sanguinius has been sent with the Khan to delay Horus for as long as they can, one last great attempt to delay the main attack on Terra. And the longer they can keep Horus's forces there at Beta Garmon, the more damage they can do to them, the easier it will be to defeat him at Terra, if that's even at all possible. Because at this point, that's pretty hard to tell. It's fair to say that a lot of the Imperial leadership have got to the point where they feel it's maybe not possible to beat Horus. Of course, they're probably not saying that too openly, but that is the general feeling, and certainly amongst the general population of the Imperium, that's starting to be the general feeling that essentially Horus can't be stopped. And so even if the Primarchs and Malcador don't openly accept that Horus is going to win, they have accepted that he will get to Terra. Sanguinius has been put in charge of this, with the Khan as his deputy. The general plan is to have this enormous Titan battle in the Beta Garmon system, where there's enormous amounts of resources at stake, Mechanicum resources mostly, and that's why the Titan legions are so heavily involved in this. But in addition to the Titans, there are an enormous array of Imperial military resources drawn to this one theatre. So it's an entire system, so the battles take place across many of the worlds within the Beta Garmon system, and including massive dockyards, orbital platforms, and of course on planets. But during the campaign, there is a particularly large battle between a very large number of Titans and other forces, which Sanguinius is personally present at, and is essentially performing kind of aerial reconnaissance, surveying the battle, trying to determine what's going to happen next, where his forces need to move to counter the next move of Horus's forces, etc. And he comes to this realization that the battle is turning against them. He realizes that he has to personally intervene in the actual battle, and not just command it. And he decides that the ideal target will be this Imperator class Titan, because that's essentially the biggest enemy asset on the field. And if he can bring it down, it's going to be a massive switch in the momentum of the enemy. It's going to be a huge symbolic victory, and is going to rally all of his forces to put extra effort in to strike back at the traitors. It's going to demoralize a lot of the traitors who see this Titan as essentially invulnerable. The general opinion amongst Imperial citizens, or even amongst military people within the Imperium, is these Titans are literally god machines. They're well, okay, I mean not literally because they're not allowed to believe in gods, but they're the closest things to gods as far as they can see in their world. They're so enormous, so powerful, and virtually indestructible. Any destruction of a Titan, particularly the most powerful, biggest class, the Imperator class, is going to be a huge blow to whichever side receives it, and is essentially guaranteed to swing the battle against the side that loses their Imperator class Titan. And so that's his motive. So the Titan he decides to attack is Axis Mundi, and he essentially picks it, as I said, simply because it's the most impressive enemy on the field. So he's got to make that big symbolic victory to turn the tide against the traitors. And to do it, once he's exploited this gap in the void shields of the Titan, he uses his incredible speed, because of course he can fly, so he's flying incredible speed to avoid being shot down by the sort of point defense systems on the Titans, because Titans are used to being attacked from the air. They're an enormous target on a battlefield. They're used to being attacked by vessels in space. They're used to being attacked by various bombers and fighter craft that fly around them and trying to attack them. So a lot of that defense comes from their void shields, but they also have an enormous array of small caliber weapons that can knock down aircraft as they come in to attack them. So it's not defenseless by any means, just because he's got inside its void shields. But he uses his incredible speed, agility, his ability to predict what will happen next to avoid any fire from the Titan. And he gets into a point where he's quite close, and he's directly in front of essentially the face of the Titan. This is the front of the command deck of the Titan, and probably one of the most well-armored parts of the Titan, because this is the point that is directly facing the enemy and is protecting its most important components, the crew, particularly the commander of the Titan, the Princeps. It has to be very well-armored, but nonetheless, he picks this spot to attack. He wants to destroy it in a very symbolic way, so he does it in pretty much a direct assault. So he just comes flying out of the sky extremely fast, drops down like a thunderbolt straight into the front of this Titan, and then he uses the Spear of Telesto, which is his personal weapon, or one of his personal weapons. Like all of the Primarchs, he has many personal weapons, but the Spear of Telesto is probably his most powerful one, and it's the one he uses quite a lot during the Heresy period, particularly towards the end of it. And it's an incredibly powerful weapon. So it's essentially a power spear, but it's not one that has been made by the Imperium. It's pre-Imperium. It might be of Xeno origin. It might be a Dark Age of technology origin, so human-made, but made at a time when humans had much greater access to higher levels of technology. But whatever it is, whatever its origins, it's much more powerful than any other weapon of its type, any other power spear. And it also has the very useful secondary ability of not killing anyone or even harming anyone that is carrying the blood of Sanguinius. So his sons are invulnerable to it. So he can fire it at a group of his sons fighting another group of enemy troops, and it will just kill the enemy. It just literally ignores his own sons and kills the enemy, which is how that actually works in a practical sense is beyond people's understanding. So I can't really explain it myself because they don't understand it within universe. So it just does that. It's believed it has some sort of psychic connection to the wielder, and that's why it does it. I don't know if anyone's ever tested this in universe, whether you could fire at someone else that's on your side and they would be invulnerable as well. I don't know, because it's always stated that it's the sons of Sanguinius. Well, actually, it's more than that. It's the people that carry the blood of Sanguinius. So maybe if you got a blood transfusion from him, you'd be fine. But certainly, it doesn't kill those who carry the blood of Sanguinius. Would it not kill, say, an Ultramarine who was fighting with them? Hard to say, because that's never seen that actually happen in any of the books. So I imagine at some point, when he got this weapon, he was testing it, firing it at random people, see if it killed them. No, I'm sure he wasn't, but it's another Primarch might have done that. He wouldn't do that. But it would be interesting to know, would it kill someone who isn't of his blood but is an ally? Maybe. But anyway, it's a really useful ability because obviously all battles end up being very messy. And in the 40k universe, usually battles break down into some sort of close combat. You've got this very real threat of a Primarch killing his own troops, probably most likely his own bodyguards, because in the 40k universe, Primarch bodyguards are generally, of a few exceptions, incredibly dedicated at trying to stay close to their Primarch and protect them. So they're always in the way. And a Primarch is so powerful, so fast, that they could very easily actually kill one of their own troops accidentally, their own bodyguards who are trying to save their lives. Now, of course, they also have incredible reflexes and ability to avoid killing someone accidentally. So they're probably doing that all the time in a fight, except probably Angron isn't doing that. I think just imagine he just kills anyone and gets in front of him. Most of the Primarchs are probably actively missing their bodyguards as they fight deliberately, just moving around them with such enormous skill and speed that the bodyguard doesn't even know that they've been saved from themselves from them getting in the way of their Primarch. Either way, if you're firing at people, well, it's a bit harder to avoid them, isn't it? Because if you've got a big crowd of people in front that are mixed between your troops and the enemy's troops, you can't use skill to avoid them because they're completely interwoven with each other. So having a weapon like the Spear of Telesto, which allows Sanguinius to simply blast them with a big cone of incredible power that will kill pretty much anyone who's there, but leave all of his own Blood Angels standing and totally untouched, would be an incredibly useful weapon. And that's before you go back to the fact that it literally cuts through with one shot the frontal armor of an Imperator class Titan. So it is incredibly powerful. Now, this takes me back to the video I did a few months ago about the Primarch's personal weapons and which was the most powerful. And I think I settled on, I can't actually remember which one I settled on, but I certainly put up at the top all the ones made by the Emperor himself. And I put the Spear of Telesto, I think, below those, so something like fourth or something. But actually, thinking about it more, I think the Spear of Telesto may be the most powerful weapon in the 40k universe. It's literally the power necessary to cut through the frontal armor of an Imperator class Titan with one shot. And it doesn't just do a little hole. It's not doing a pinprick like this. It's doing a really big hole, a hole that's probably several meters across that allows Sanguinius to fly through it. So this is no mean feat. This is an incredible feat, in fact. It's so powerful that I think it could easily kill a Primarch with one shot, because their armor, no matter how perfectly made, is not going to be better than the armor of an Imperator class Titan. You can't make a suit of power armor that's probably going to be at best this thick match up to an Imperator class Titan's frontal armor, which is going to be many meters thick. So I'm pretty sure that one shot from the Spear of Telesto would completely obliterate any Primarch. The probably only way to defend yourself against it would be a powerful psychic shield generated by someone like the Emperor or Magnus. I don't think anyone else would be able to stand up against it. Now, it could be some sort of machine-generated shielding, of course. There are several characters who have access to very powerful defense shields that are pre-Imperium, again, some Dark Age of technology or alien technology that can defend against incredibly strong blows. So perhaps there are a few people who have those who could survive it, but I don't think a suit of power armor, even a suit of mastercrafted Terminator armor, is going to stand up to one shot from the Spear of Telesto. So something to ponder there. But anyway, going back to the actual killing of this Titan. So Sanguinius uses the Spear of Telesto, cuts this massive hole in it with one blast, flies straight in, and then obliterates the crew, of course. Because if you're a Titan crew, you don't stand any chance against Sanguinius or any other Primarch for that matter. He also has the help of his personal bodyguard, the Sangre Guard. So they fly in after him and they just cut down anyone who else is around. They then essentially overload the core of the Titan and fly off, and it blows up, collapses in a heap. Everyone's like, what the? And tide of the battle is turned. He has won a victory, effectively single-handedly defeated one of the largest gatherings of Titans ever by destroying this one Titan, swinging the battle against them, and they have to retreat. And in doing so, as I said at the beginning, probably perform one of the most singularly impressive acts of any Primarch, of perhaps any person. in the 40k universe. Now, he himself has done some other pretty incredible things. He's killed some very powerful demons. He's killed other Titans, but this is an Imperator class Titan. This is as big as they come, effectively, and he's done it in essentially single combat. He's single combat against a Titan, not just any Titan. There are other Primarchs who fought Titan. Angron fights a Warhound Titan and doesn't get squashed by it, even though it tries to step on his head, which is impressive. Then Lorgar destroys it with his psychic powers, which is incredibly impressive. And I think everyone, when you read that, you're like, wow, okay, Lorgar really has grown, hasn't he? He's really developed during this story. That probably one of the moments where I gained quite a lot of more respect for Lorgar than I'd had up to that point. And you realise just how much he's changed from the point of the drop site massacre, where he is absolutely pathetic, to this point where he's like dominating the battlefield. But that is nothing compared to what Sanguinius does by destroying an Imperator class Titan on his own. Doesn't even use psychic powers. Yeah, okay, he's got this weapon which is incredibly powerful. That's part of his war gear. That's part of who he is. He's got that weapon. That's part of his character to have that weapon. So I think, obviously he's not going to fight a Titan naked, but he's allowed his war gear. I think that's reasonable to include that in his ability to fight. So given that, it has to be right up there as one of the most impressive military acts of any Primarch. So let me know what you think. Are there events that I'm forgetting, or maybe I just don't know about, that other Primarchs or just other individuals have performed, maybe during the heresy or before or since, that you would say is even more impressive? Try to keep it to combat related, because obviously there are other things as you can't really compare apples and oranges. I think if you directly compare battlefield prowess, I would struggle to think of anything as impressive as what he did there. But I'm sure some of you have thought of something already. So put it down in the comments, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.